As the game that we're here to talk about today is one that required the player to use camouflage and stealth techniques, I thought I would apply some camouflage and try and hide from you a little bit at the start of this video. Hope you can see me. Hello everyone, welcome to the re-review, the series where I get to replay and reassess games from my favourite gaming era. I'm Brian, also known as UK Gen Zoidberg, and I don't just like playing Amiga games, I like to learn a little bit about the people who made them too. Going back to my time on GamesX and Amiga Action, where I was fortunate enough to meet and talk to quite a few games developers, I've always strived to learn a little bit more about the minds behind my favourite games. As I'm going back and looking at all the games that I reviewed, I'm also sharing the information about the fascinating careers of the makers of each game, and I hope you enjoy learning a little bit about them too. In this episode, I'm going to be checking out my original review of the tactical shooter Special Forces from Microprose and developer Sleepless Nights, that was released in early 1992. In the 16-bit home computer era of the late 80s and early 90s, simulation games were big business, and perhaps the biggest name in simulation games was Microprose Software. The company had been founded in 1982 by Bill Steely and Sid Meier, after the two had met at a convention and then struck up a friendship over their shared love of the Atari arcade game Red Baron. The company would produce many top-selling simulators such as F-15 Strike Eagle, Silent Service and Gunship. In 1987 they would produce the military action game Airborne Ranger for the Commodore 64, in which players had to undertake a number of daring missions using tactics and stealth rather than brute force, and this made it stand out from many other games on the market. Its sequel, Special Forces, arrived in 1992 and was from a developer called Sleepless Nights. If you were to do a search for them on any decent retro gaming website, you'll discover that it was the only game they ever produced as well. You might think that this means that I've not got a lot to talk about on this episode, but nothing could be further from the truth. The coding was handled by Keith Jackson and Mark Fisher, both former members of Imagitech Design, who had converted Airborne Ranger to the Amiga in 1989. They would go on to work for Interplay and Acclaim respectively. Imagitech Design had previously made Butcher Hill and Combo Racer for Gremlin Graphics, but they're probably most well known to Amiga owners as the makers of the Humans trilogy. Game design was by Jim Bamborough, who by the early 90s was already a big name in the world of fantasy role-playing. As well as writing a number of advanced Dungeons & Dragons game books, he also wrote a series called The Beginner's Guide to Role-Playing Games that appeared in the pages of Imagine magazine, a publication dedicated to the first edition AD&D in 1983. His first video game to be published by Microprose was The Legacy Realm of Terror, a PC adventure game that had been made in conjunction with Magnetic Scrolls, the famed developer responsible for text adventures such as Jinxter and Guild of Thieves. An Amiga version of The Legacy was in development, but it was sadly cancelled before being finished. Bamborough would go on to research and design the critically acclaimed Fields of Glory in 1993, a real-time strategy game based on Napoleon's Waterloo campaign. This was converted to the Amiga and CD32 in 1994 by WJS Design, the makers of Orc, which I actually covered in the last episode of the re-review. In 1996, Bamborough founded Pumpkin Studios and would go on to make the criminally overlooked Warzone 2100, which is in my opinion easily the best real-time strategy game on the PlayStation. At a time when it was common belief that RTS games couldn't work on consoles, this was the exception that proved that they could. Pumpkin Studios closed their doors in March 2000, and Bamborough went on to become the managing director at Pivotal Games. In this role, he would oversee the long-running Conflict series, and the 2003 game based on the classic movie The Great Escape, which came out on PlayStation 2, Xbox and PC. Pivotal would become part of the Eidos Group in 2005, and then, following the disappointing release of Conflict Denied Ops in 2008, they closed their doors for good. Bamborough would go on to work as a video games consultant, as well as writing for his own website, wargamesdesign.com. Now it's time to check out what I said about Special Forces when I first played it in my original review. My review appeared in issue 39 of GamesX from January 1992, the same week as my birthday in fact. This was the same issue as my review of Space Gun, which I looked at in episode 37 of the re-review. That game was our game of the week, but Special Forces earned itself a full 2-page review as well. I reviewed it on both the Atari ST and Amiga at the same time, and stated that there was very little difference between the two. The Amiga version had slightly smoother scrolling, but you probably wouldn't notice because you'd be too engrossed in the missions. I thought that it had a good blend of action and strategy, and would therefore appeal to almost anybody who played it. With 16 different missions to try out and 4 different difficulty levels, there was more than enough here to keep you busy for a very long time, even at the high asking price. Perhaps the biggest letdown is the very steep price tag. £35 is a lot to pay for any type of game, but with a game of this quality you'll still get your value out of it. Oh, how times have changed. I awarded it 4.5 X's out of 5 with an X rated stamp. Both presentation and lastability earned 17 out of 20, with gameplay earning 16 out of 20. Here's how my score compared to the ones in other Amiga magazines that same month. For some reason, CU Amiga didn't actually review it on the original release. Now let's load the game up, download a copy of the manual and see whether I can make head nor tail of how to play it today. It's time for the playtest. Okay, it's actually quite easy to play this game today. I've downloaded the game from the My Abandonware website and stuck that on a USB stick, and I'm playing this on the A500 Mini. What I've also done is plugged in a USB keyboard because there is a lot of keyboard commands on this one. I've also gone on the Hall of Light website and got myself a copy of the game's manual and the key reference guide card that came with the game that tells you what all the keyboard commands are. Kind of vitally important that I have those to hand. This game is a lot more complicated than you would imagine. So let's select a mission that we're going to do. We're going to go off to the tropics, and if we choose mission 1, that is a rescue prisoner of war mission. And after announcing hardcore actions against drug dealing, the president has disappeared. He has been held by the leader of an established armed militia group. Your mission is to rescue the now POW president. So that's an overview of the map. On some missions, you will actually get to choose where your squad helicopters in. On this one, I think you helicopter in this area here. The game chooses it for you. You then have to choose which members of your 8-man squad you're taking with you. You can take 4. So as this is in the tropics, I am going to try and choose men who have... Well, he's an automatics expert. I'll take him. This guy is a camouflage expert, so I'm going to take him. Rifle specialist, no. Camouflage expert, that's going to be our Tiger. And this guy, small arms expert, he's going to be our Eagle. You then have to select what bag of weapons they are taking with them. And I'm actually just going to give them all bag number 1 because this doesn't require any explosives. Now you have a few different control options available for your squad. If you can switch between your members by pressing the F keys, F1 to F4, F2, F3, F4. There's all 4 of my team members. Now I can move them all individually. If I press F1 again, I can control the man myself with the joystick. So if I change the formation so that they're going to be moving in 2 squads of 2, I can bring up the map and take the first group down the bottom here. So I can see all 4 squad members. It's probably a little bit takes up. I mean, the screen was already a bit small anyway, so splitting it 4 ways is probably not ideal. So I could move these ones this way. Okay, so they've all reached their destinations. So I think the best way to do this is going to be to approach from that bridge on the far left of the map. So the president is being held captive in this compound up here. What I think I'm going to do is move 3 and 4 to this entrance over here. And numbers 1 and 2 can make their way over here. I will then need to quickly change to number 1 and go in this way. And there is the prisoner of war. So let's bring these guys down this way as well. And then we can press escape to call in the helicopter to rescue us. There we go. So you now get to reward and promote members of your team. I'm going to
promote that guy because he's currently private. So let's decorate him because he killed 18 people. Good conduct medal for exceptional mission performance, yes. And he was the team leader, so I'm going to decorate him as well. Right, so let's try a different type of mission. I'm going to go for the Arctic missions. The sabotage is the mission to go for here. Your objective is to prevent the terrorists moving supplies to their cells. The trucks carrying the weapons and the bridges they cross are to be destroyed. So I will need to take lots of explosives and probably an explosive expert. So I can put him as Cobra. They're all going to need to take explosives with them for definite. So, as you can see, he can't carry that much weight. So he's going to stick with a bag number 2 that has explosives and some rockets in it. This guy can take a heavy bag, so he's going to take. He can also take a heavy bag, so he's going to do the same. And that guy is also going to do the same. So they're all going to take the heavy bags. We've got plenty of explosives because we've got lots of bridges to blow up. Right, so let's split into squads of 2. Again, first 2 can go down that way. And then the second 2 can make their way over there. Then I need to press, according to the key commands, I need to press X to select explosives. And then I need to go and place these on the bridge. That's not good. I've placed them before the bridge. Let's see if that actually destroyed it. I move out of range. Press 0 on the keypad. Has that blown the bridge up? It has. Yes, that's good. And that is the last of the 2 detonators that this player was carrying. Okay, they appear to be stuck. That's annoying. Change to number 4 and blow up. That's blown up some trucks and a bridge. That's blown up one of the trucks. I have no ammo. How do I change gun? R for rifles. Try that. I need to move away from these trucks. I think I literally just have to get out of here now. Let's take them back over here to where that guy is. No, where you going, you idiots? Why are you going that way? The waypointing is not very good. They definitely don't seem to go where you want them to go a lot of the time, which is kind of crucial. Bring in the chopper to take us away. We've blown up 4 bridges and a couple of trucks. See if that's enough. Mission was unsuccessful, and one of my team has been KIA. One of the things that I do like is that if one of your squad members gets captured in a mission and you still successfully complete it, then you are actually able to go back into that mission and it's become a rescue POW mission instead. So there you go. That's a couple of missions on Special Forces. It's probably more complicated than it needed to be. I don't know why there's not a single button to cycle through your different weapons rather than having an individual keyboard command for each one. I think it's time we move on to the re-review itself to summarise my feelings on it. So let's do that.
Special Forces is very much a game from a different era. Having to sit with a list of keyboard commands and a bulky manual close to hand is not an experience that many modern gamers will understand. If you're going to be playing it on the A500 Mini, then you are going to need to plug in a decent USB keyboard. Consequently, it's a game that I found incredibly hard to get into. If you stick with it, you will find a surprisingly rewarding game underneath all the complexity though. The mission design offers plenty of variety, and learning which team members to take with you really does matter. You also find yourself bonding with your squad, and if you end up losing one in battle, it can be pretty devastating. The front-end presentation is excellent, with well laid out menu screens making it easy to choose your missions, squad and loadout. In-game, however, the graphics are functional and unspectacular, and far too much of the screen is taken up by the HUD. The disappointing sound consists of nothing more than a few gunshots and explosions. Some ambient jungle noises or some Arctic wind would have gone a long way to improving the atmosphere. Unlike what I said originally, this is definitely not a game for everybody, and I found that the controls were way too complicated. There is a good game here if you dedicate yourself to it, and I can certainly see the seeds of what was to become Conflict Desert Storm. However, it's a very hard game to recommend as there are so many much more accessible alternatives out there. I haven't played that many games in the Action Strategy Super League, so here's how Special Forces would rank alongside them. Unfortunately, there's just too much great competition out there. Today's score would be a 6 out of 10. There's a lot of depth here, but it takes far too much effort to find it, and the controls are too complicated. Strategy fans will like it though. Thank you for watching this episode of the re-review. I really hope you enjoyed it. If you did, then please do give us a like and subscribe to show your support for the channel. We have lots of playlists on the channel full of Amiga games, and the links to some of them should be on screen right now. All opinions expressed in this video are entirely mine and not those of the UK Gaming Network team. If you played Special Forces and you think that I'm wrong in my assessment, or maybe you agree with me, I'd love to hear your opinion in the comments. There'll be another re-review coming up in 2 weeks' time, where I'm going to be replaying Guy Spy and the Crystals of Armageddon. Hopefully I'll see you for that one. Until next time, happy retro gaming. Bye for now.